Good morning, everyone. Beth Combs here with Can You Community Yoga. Thanks for joining me for our Tuesday morning session. Sorry I'm a little late trying to get technology going a little bit per the usual. So I just wanted to share a card real quick to kind of help us focus during our practice today. So the card this morning is called Dharma. I always like to show the card and just notice any pieces that stand out to you. And then I'll read what it mentions in the book. So I actually pulled this card in reverse. It says, "Perhaps you need a reminder of the very important role you play in the universe. You were born with unique gifts that only you can share in your individualized way. The world can only come into balance when everyone rises up into their Dharma role, and that begins with you. Take a step back and look at your life. Is each day bringing you closer to your higher purpose, or have you lost sight of what that is? Remember, your Dharma role is so much greater than just you. When you don't rise up, the whole world misses out. We need you." So just like sharing the cards because I feel like they just give us something to set our intention on for our practice if we don't happen to have one, and just give us some good things to think about. So I'm on my bleed today, so we're going to do a more restorative session. I've got lots of pillows and blocks and blankets, as you can see behind me. So we'll go ahead and get started in a comfortable seated position. So whatever that is for you, if it's sitting on your knees or cross-legged, go ahead and feel free to do that. Move the lamp over a little bit. So as you can see, I am up on my bolster, making sure you can still see my hands. Realized that was not the case yesterday. So I hope you slept well, and I hope you're ready to just add a little bit of gentle movement into your morning. And so we'll go ahead and get started now. So comfortable seated position. We've got our sits bones rooting down into the cushion behind or underneath us, or the mat. If you don't need a cushion, that's fine. Just make sure that your knees are lower than your hips. So I've got kind of a nice gentle diagonal going from my hips down to my knees. We'll sit up nice and tall here, extending up the spine and out the crown of the head. You can close your eyes if you'd like. We're going to start by taking 3 rounds of breath where we inhale through the nose and exhale out the mouth, releasing any tension from the day behind us, last night if we maybe didn't sleep well, or even any tension you might have from this morning. So we'll take a nice big inhale and then exhale out the mouth. Feel free to sigh and make as much noise as you need to, releasing that tension. Inhale again, all the way to the tippy top, and then exhale. And then one more time, inhale, exhale. And then you can close the mouth unless you're feeling particularly anxious this morning. And if that's the case, then you can feel free to continue exhaling out the mouth throughout the practice. We'll just settle into our breath here, getting to know our body, how it's feeling this morning. Setting ourselves up to practice our Dharma throughout the day ahead. And then you can blink the eyes open, and we'll take a little side stretch here. So right hand next to the right hip. We'll inhale, bring the left arm up alongside the left ear, and then fold over to the right any amount. Make sure you're not crunching that right wrist. You might need to move your hand onto the floor. You can gaze up under that left arm, really breathing into that side body. I can feel the stretch all the way down into my hip. We'll inhale, we'll come back to center. And then we'll take the left hand, we'll place it next to our left hip, bring the right arm up alongside the ear, and then over to the right, or sorry, the left. Maybe gaze up under the right arm. We'll inhale, we'll come back to center. And then we're going to fold over the legs. If you're in seated cross-legged pose, if you're sitting on your knees, you could take a child's pose here. Then we'll come back to center. Then we're going to change the cross of the legs. And we're going to take a twist here. So we're going to take our right hand onto our left knee. We're going to inhale, sit up nice and tall. Exhale, rotate to the left. With each inhale, get a little bit taller. With each exhale, rotate a little bit more. And when you're on your bleed, you don't necessarily want to twist too much, so it's just kind of a more gentle twist. I'm not going as far as I normally would. Maybe gaze over that left shoulder. Then we'll inhale, we'll come back to center, and we'll switch sides. So left hand will go to the right knee. We'll inhale, sit up nice and tall, and exhale, rotate over to the right. Maybe gaze over the right shoulder. Then we'll inhale, we'll come back to center. And then we will go ahead and come down. If you're on a cushion, you might want to get off of it. And we'll actually come into our tabletop position on our hands and knees. So wrists are under the shoulders, knees are underneath our hips. The tops of the feet are pressing into the mat. We're going to do some rounds of cat-cow here. So really press up from those wrists. You want a lot of weight to be between the index finger and the thumb. So we're going to inhale, we're going to lift our forehead and our tailbone towards the ceiling. Exhale, pull the belly button back towards the spine. Inhale to come up. Exhale, pull back. Inhale to come up. Exhale to pull back. And then take two more following your own breath at your own pace. Then we'll come back to center at tabletop, and then we'll take some hip circles so you can drop the hips towards your seat and then pull the hips forward towards your hands. Then we'll switch directions. And then we'll come back to center. And then we'll take a child's pose next. So you can bring the knees together and lower the torso down with the arms extended and the forehead reaching towards the mat. Or you can widen the knees while keeping the big toes touching. I like to place a block under my forehead. It just really helps me get my tailbone to head towards the floor and towards my feet a little bit easier. A little less tension in the hips doing it this way for me. So feel free to give it a try if you'd like. It also helps connect the third eye to the floor. So it just feels a little bit more grounding. And we'll inhale, we'll come back to center. And then our next pose, we are going to actually, if you have the ability, I invite you to move your mat up against a wall if you can. Otherwise, it's not required, but especially on our bleed, we want to have gentle movement without a lot of tension. So the wall just helps give us a little bit more stability on our backs. I'm going to sit up on a pillow just to help with the alignment of my low back. So if your tailbone kind of sticks out like this, uh, then you might want to sit up on a smaller blanket or cushion. You could even fold a blanket and use that instead. And then we're going to bring the legs out wide as it feels comfortable to do so. So our backs are up against the wall. You can feel free to bend your knees here. You can also feel free, if your inner thighs are not very, if they're kind of tight, then you could bring the legs a lot closer. But I am feeling like it's okay to stretch like this. So we're going to start off just with our backs up against the wall before we do any folding. And I like to place my fists down on the mat because my hands don't quite reach, but I don't want to do this on my fingertips because that can hurt my wrist. So my compromise is to make a fist and to press down into the mat. So you're trying to sit up nice and tall, get nice and long through the back side of the body, lengthening out the crown of the head, just like we did at the beginning of our practice. Feel free to close your eyes here. We'll be here for a couple moments. Keep the feet flexed. That'll help keep the legs active. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually forward fold in this position. Again, you can bend your knees if you need to. Ideally, when we're doing restorative work or we're on our bleed, we want to have as much support as possible. So we're getting the benefits of gentle stretching, but we're not straining our bodies more than it really needs at this time. So you can see I've got my bolster and a couple blankets stacked, and then I've got my block to put my forehead on. So we're just gonna lean forward here. So again, you might need to bring your legs closer. You might want to bend your knees. Just try to keep the feet flexed if you can. Even if your knees are bent, I still want you to keep your feet kind of active. And we'll be here for a couple moments. And props can be so helpful in our yoga practice. They can bring the floor up to us wherever we happen to be. They can support us so that we can really rest and sink into a posture or a pose. And especially when we're bleeding, it's really nice to have that kind of sinking into, kind of like when you're cold and you wrap a soft blanket around you, just kind of that feeling of softness and feeling of being held. It helps support our bodies and our minds as we're going through either our bleed or just any time we need a more restorative practice. Something that's a little more gentle, not as much movement like sun salutations can be. Just allow yourself to sink into the pose. And then we'll slowly bring ourselves back up to center. And then we're going to move to the side body. So go ahead and keep your cushions in place and just move your bolster or your blankets over to your left, alongside your left leg. You could actually place the bolster on top of the leg. So if the bolster isn't too long, you can use that option as well. Just place your hands in front of you on the blankets or the bolster. I'm not getting much of a stretch by doing it that way, so I'm going to put mine on the floor and then lean forward a little bit more. And that feels better for me, so maybe give that a try if the other one just didn't really feel as comfortable. Like I said earlier, the bolsters and the blankets are supposed to help make your practice just feel more supported and nourishing, so you might have to just adjust how you have things stacked to allow for you to sink into the pose a little bit more. And we'll come back up to center, and then we'll move the blankets over to the right leg next. So again, you can place the bolster on top of your leg if you'd like this. As I said earlier, I wasn't getting much of a stretch, probably because my bolster is so large that it's not really letting me fold the way I need to. So I've just got the bolster up against my inner thighs, and my blankets are on top, and then I've got the block supporting my head. So do whatever you need to sink into this pose for a few moments. Then we'll come back to center, and then we're going to pick up the bolster. We're going to bring the legs together, and then we'll set up for a forward fold. So you might have to bring the block a little closer. Keep the feet flexed, arms resting on the blankets. You can bend your knees here if you need to. You can also separate the legs just a little bit and allow the bolster to rest in between your legs. If you have a round bolster or a cylinder, then that might be a little bit easier. This one's kind of a little too wide for that, but it does feel a little bit better to separate the legs just because this bolster is so big. So do whatever works best for you. Spreading the legs a little bit might help too. If your hamstrings are really tight, then you'll want to bend your knees, and that's a little easier to do when the bolster's not right on top of them. Just see if you can lengthen from your tailbone all the way up to the crown of your head. Make sure you release your jaw. Release the tongue from the roof of your mouth while you're breathing. See if you can get your exhales to gently stroke the back of your throat like Darth Vader breath. Then we'll inhale and we'll come back to center. And then we'll go ahead and set up for one of my favorite poses. But I need to move the mat back over so I have room for my legs. So you're going to take your blocks. If you don't have blocks, but you have like pillows or blankets, you're going to stack them kind of on the back side of your mat. But then you're going to take your bolster, if you have it, or your cushion, and you're going to lean it up against those blocks or blankets, whatever you happen to have. And then you're going to want to grab your pillows or your cushions and put one on either side of your mat. And then you're going to move my blankets out of the way. You're going to bring the soles of your feet together and you're going to scooch so that your tailbone is right up against the bottom of your bolster. Your pillows or if you have more blocks, whatever cushions you happen to have, you can rest them on the pillows there and then just lean back onto your bolster. Feel free to grab a blanket and drape it over you if you're a little chilly. We're going to be here for a few minutes. So if you need to move your feet further away from you because it's too tight on your groin and your inner thighs, feel free to do that. Or if you feel comfortable, you can bring them a little bit closer. So again, just checking in with your body, seeing where you're at. And as you settle in here for a few moments, just remembering our card from earlier in our practice about Dharma. So I just invite you to sink into this pose. And as you sink into the pose, maybe begin to sink into what the universe is calling you to do in the world. Just allow yourself to be surrounded by that Dharma. Then we'll go ahead and bring ourselves back up to a comfortable seated position. So I kind of prefer that pose to even Shavasana at this time of the month. It just feels a lot better on my body, especially my pelvic area. So I hope that this practice was nourishing and supportive for you as you work toward your Dharma and go about the rest of your day. So thank you so much for joining me this morning, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great day. Bye.